Yo, 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 welcome back to the Minivan Movie Club. Hanging out in the van, I got my favorite movie friend, Nick Wiggum.
What's up, guys?
Hey, we are excited because we've got a good show today, and if you've been tuning along, this summer we've been talking about at-home movie marathons, summer blockbusters, everything you want, because when you're at home in the summer, there's nothing better than a good movie. And today we're going to talk about two really big ones.
The biggest of all time.
The biggest of all time. We're talking about Precious by Sapphire.
Yes.
I'm kidding. No,
Fantastic.
We're talking about Avatar and Avatar 2, The Way of Water, the classics by James Cameron, seemingly classics, even though they're pretty recent. And again, last week we reviewed Across the Spider-Verse, a phenomenal Spider-Man movie. Prior to that, we watched every single Spider-Man movie, and we're continuing on that marathon of trying to watch some awesome movies. We've changed the van a little bit. No purple in the back.
No Spideys back there.
We are going into Pandora. This minivan, we're not in Kansas anymore.
No.
We're on Pandora, and it will eat you alive if you're not careful.
Yet the ecosystem will come get you. It recognizes all foreign bodies. It is a living, breathing organism of its own.
Yep. But before we get into that, we always like to do some clearinghouse details. Make sure we're being friendly. Make sure that you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. We are in the middle of doing a movie on the mini giveaway. That means all you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, and the first 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel will have a chance to win a $25 Fandango gift card on us.
Yep.
That's free movies, baby.
Yeah, movie on the mini does not mean that you watch a movie on top of the minivan.
No.
It means that you go to the movies on our dime.
Yes.
Yep.
We will pay for you to go see a movie. And there's so many good movies. There's been a lot of good movies,
Yep.
It seems like. We've finally gotten out of the COVID movies. We are into movies that are pulling us back to the theater. And we're excited because this week, after this review, we're going to see The Flash. So make sure you go to the movie theaters and check that one out. It's going to be a good one. And if you're keeping in line with all the ideas we've had of seeing movies before you see the movies, you can go see a couple of Batman movies.
Yep.
Go see The Flash on the CW. There are so many exciting things that you can go check out on Max, not HBO Max, just on Max to get ready for this movie. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, Max has pretty much everything Snyderverse on there. So if you want to watch those, if you want to watch Shazam 2 just dropped on Max, if you want to watch that before we hop into another DC movie, me and Brett have avoided spoilers, so I don't know who all is going to pop into this movie and how heavily connected it is to the previous ones, but we all know because they keep pumping the commercials out there that Michael Keaton's Batman is there and that Ben Affleck's Batman is there. So if you want to be up to date on those Batman and the movies that The Flash has also been in, then, catch the original Batman, catch Batman Returns, and then catch the Batman vs. Superman and the Justice League. I would recommend the Snyder Cut versions of those and not the theatrical versions if you want to watch a decent movie, but they're long.
And there's a lot of people that have given criticism to the MCU because they've said, I don't have to watch 11 movies to enjoy this movie. And from our understanding, this new Flash movie is going to launch the new DCU with James Gunn holding the reins as the true leader driving this ship. And so you don't have to watch those movies. But if you're like us, I'll watch some bad movies just to learn some of the lore and the background. So plus I'm a sucker for Batman. I'm a sucker for a Batman movie, even a bad Batman movie. There's some shout-outs to George Clooney. Yeah. But go check those out. It's going to be a good one. Any other movie news you want to talk about before we hop into the movie?
No, I mean, the movie that we're reviewing today, we learned after that its sequels will be many years in the future. So if you want to wait, I guess, and wait till the next one's coming out in 3 or 4 years, and that's fine. But don't hold your breath. Just enjoy what we have so far. 2 visual spectacles, and I'm ready to hop in if you are.
Awesome. Well, let's hop into the backseat breakdown of Avatar. We'll hop in our own DeLorean, if you will, our minivan DeLorean, and travel back to 2009 when the fastest growing movie to make $1 billion was released. I think it was 19 days. that it took to make $1 billion. James Cameron's classic Avatar. It's the first introduction to the world of Pandora, and humans are there mining, and they meet the humanoid native people, the Na'vi. Jake Sully, who is a paraplegic. Is it quadriplegic? That's not the right word. Paralyzed. He's just paralyzed.
He's a paraplegic.
Yeah, that's not very handy capable of me to say that.
He got use of his
I'm
arms.
gonna get
doesn't use
canceled
his
for
legs.
saying that.
Yeah, he's got quad is 4, so that means all 4 limbs don't work. Para is 2, so he's got paraplegia, no leg function.
He's a jarhead military guy replacing his brother who passed away. He is going to join a scientific team that is able to interact with the native Na'vi people through a synthetic organism known as an avatar, which is this giant blue alien body that they can connect to through this new technology that is able to synchronize their brains. And very quickly, this fish out of water story, he gets thrown into the Na'vi people, and he's stuck in between his allegiances to the humans and his allegiances to the Na'vi. He builds relationships across both sides, and ensuing war happens, and that's the story.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar from any stories we've seen that have been pretty popular with like Native American, with like a European style person coming in and they get kind of adopted into the culture. It's very similar to all of those kind of.
There's a lot of people that have criticized the movie for being like a very beautiful but modern Pocahontas
or Dances with Wolves.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a very similar to that style of story where you've got, like Brett said, the fish out of water. He's trying to connect with these people. He earns their trust eventually.
Then there's the inevitable moment of like, I lied to you, but that's how it started. And then I fell in love.
Yeah, but then I'm really in love. And then, then he gets to band together and teach them his ways so they can defeat their evil oppressors. The story doesn't really do much to move forward like narratives for
the plot
the world, but people didn't go see this movie like 3 or 4 times in theaters because the plot. I mean, I know more people that watched this movie more times in theaters than I know any other movie, and it shows because it's the movie that made the most money ever. So
looking back to that in 2009, you were probably like 45 years old back then.
Yeah,
you're pretty old back then. What do you remember? What your first takeaways were when you saw the movie?
So I do remember I hated having to wear those glasses for 3 hours. That was frustrating for me. But I also remember that visually it was breathtaking. I understood why so many people liked it. And it really went to the old adage of like people like shiny things, and that's why people went to go see it. And it was cool. The action was really cool. This fun new world. It wasn't necessarily my favorite movie, just because I did feel that like I was a teenager, so I had seen Pocahontas plenty of times. So I did feel like I'm just watching a story I've seen before. So it didn't do anything like that. But I also thought that like some of the people I knew that had seen it like 4 and 5 times, I'm like, why would you watch this movie that many times? But
see, I remember being like a prisoner of the moment, and I think I saw it 3 or 4 times in theaters. I was one of those people. Hey. And there was a lot of movies like trying to do the 3D, a lot of Transformers movies by Michael Bay. A lot of action movies would say you have the option to see this in 3D. So when you would see it, it'd be like, oh, this doesn't feel right.
There'd always be that one scene where they like throw something at
you. Exactly. Very campy, like you're going to Moody Gardens or some tourist trap.
Squish you with water.
That's always felt very disingenuous or not very authentic. This was the first time I saw a movie that made me think, wow, 3D movies of the future. This felt like a whole new world. And while the plot itself is pretty derivative of stories that you've seen, I thought and still think that the concept of Pandora and creating a new world is very real. It's very new and very fresh. Kind of reminds me, I've talked on the show before about playing Halo as a kid and as a college kid, of thinking about, wow, I'm in my own new world. And Pandora felt real, and visually it was so cool. I do remember kind of being a prisoner of the moment and giving into some of that recency bias. At one point, Avatar was in my top 10 movies of all time. It has since fallen out just because of some of the things that I dealt with the movie personally. But all in all, when I rewatched it this time around, I was really appreciative of all that went into making that movie, because at the time in 2009, motion capture was a pretty new technology.
Yeah, just
and it still holds
scene,
up.
Yeah.
It really does still hold up. I was really surprised when looking at some of the animation that even today, 13 years later, I look at the film and I'm like, yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah, no, it's a fun movie. I don't fault anybody now because I'm not as cynical as I was then. Like, if you enjoy Avatar and it's just something you want to put on, like, I have no problem with that. There's definitely worse movies. It's not like it does a terrible job of telling you a story. It's just it doesn't do anything like innovative. It's not like T2 where it's like I've never seen a story like this before. Yep. But visually, it is like it pretty much propelled everything forward with what it was able to do. It took what Lord of the Rings did with the motion capture for Gollum and just like launched it into a whole new frontier.
No, I think it's a special movie. When I think about those summer blockbusters that we've talked about, it's like Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, where were you when you saw this movie? This is probably the closest thing I have in my generation, like being able to participate, of going to the movies during the hype. I think I saw it 2 times in its like prime run. It was just a really like you got to go see it. You need to see this in the theaters, and I'm really glad that I did see it in an actual movie theater.
Yeah, as we'll get into the next movie, that's my one regret, is I do wish I would have blocked off the 3 hours to watch the sequel in theaters, because these are this kind of movies that they need that surround sound. They need like all the bells and whistles of a movie theater really amplify your experience when you're watching a movie like this. It's a spectacle. It's made to be watched in a theater. He made these movies to be watched on the biggest screen possible with the loudest audio possible, and you really get the full benefit of what he's trying to do as a storyteller. Because I have my reservations and my critiques of James Cameron and the things he says when he gets in front of a microphone. But when it comes to telling stories and making movies, he's got one of the best catalogs of all time.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about Avatar, Sam Worthington wasn't like a huge star at the time. Still isn't like the biggest. I would not consider him an A-lister. Zoe Saldana, while she had been in a lot of things before that, she was famous. I'd say she was like a C-tier, B-tier star at the time. She's now since catapulted tremendously thanks to Marvel and her role as Gamora, but she's kind of like the motion capture princess right now. Anything she's a part of 4 of the top 5.
Yeah, she's
highest grossing movies of all time.
If you got $1 billion franchise, there's a good chance she's been a part of it somewhere.
So it's got an interesting cast. It's got a good story. It's a really breathtaking visual film. And then you have to wait 14. So you have to wait
2,000 years later.
So you have to wait 13 years for the sequel to Avatar, for Avatar 2, The Way of Water. My question to you, was it worth the wait?
Yes, it was worth the wait. The technology has come a long way still. It's very impressive. Visually, it's captivating. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where they're recolonizing the planet, and like the fire is like just kind of eroding everything, and that was my first thought. Like when I'm watching, I'm like, oh man, I really should have seen this in theaters. Like this scene would have just like been mind-blowing, I feel like. How do you feel about it? Not that scene in particular, but
well, I think in general I have the same sentiment. I kind of had a little bit of, I don't know if it's like anti-James Cameronism or what, but when this movie came out, I was not as excited to go see it in theaters. I wanted to go see it, but I kept finding excuses not to go. I got the kids, or my wife and I want to do this, so I just wouldn't go. And while I was watching it, I found myself really, really enjoying it. I thought there was so much to it, and while the first movie is kind of a fish out of water story with Sully, this one is like a fish out of water story flipped inside out, where like literally we're it's not enough to visit Pandora. You know, we're going to dive into Pandora literally and be fish in the water. So I thought it was a really, again, a visual movie. In the same way that the first movie was a little bit derivative plot-wise, I thought the plot was, fine. But all in all, I thought visually
it was a natural
really
progression. I feel like the plot, it was hard to go see the movie in theaters because it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
That's the gist of it. If you're doing anything, if you get a break from the kids.
So to see it in theaters, you're committing like 4.5 hours to be away from the house. And that's a lot for
And if you have a, even not seeing it with each other, if you have a date night or any of those things to go see this movie, then you're looking at 6 hours just because going to eat and then going to this movie and those things. And so that makes it kind of hard. And I know, John Wick's director and other ones have made fun of like, oh, we're so worried about 3 hours. But like when you put a 3-hour movie, that's a commitment for people, especially if you've got other responsibilities to kind of put aside. And so if this movie was 220, I think me and you would have seen it and it would have been a lot easier, more palatable. And I think, look, there's a lot. I'm going to talk about a lot of good things, but I do think that some of the like training montage a little bit for me was a little derivative of like, you don't have to show me like him learning how to swim. Like I get the idea of like, you show me a couple of training things.
See, I disagree. I actually really enjoyed that. The 3-hour time limit kept me out of the theater, but while I was watching it, yes, there's some things that you could say we're going to cut for fluff, but like, that is world building. It is exploring Pandora, being underwater with these sea creatures. I saw a comment on a YouTube video from Screen Crush where one of the people were saying they're a marine biologist. They already love the ocean. But watching this movie made them fall in love with the ocean all over again because it gave them a new perspective, and I felt in the same way. I was able to experience these creatures in a way that I didn't experience them in the original Avatar with the like horses and the banshees. Those were these like kind of just animals in the wild. Here, these were like sentient beings that had emotions and you could experience them. I loved that we were able to see things like from the whale's perspective.
I like
being able to see those things and understand how they're like interconnected and actually communicate. We didn't get that in the first Avatar. So I think experiencing that makes it a more rich experience. And if you cut those things, it's a shorter movie, but do you have the same connection to some of those like themes that are being at play here?
I think you can still have a connection to those. I mean, you can still have the whale stuff. My issue is just like, all right, now we're learning how to hold our breath. Now we're learning how to ride this animal again, which we already showed you how to ride animals in the first one. Now we're learning. And so it just kind of, to me, just kind of felt like, all right, like, I get it, James, you're proud of this world you made. And it's cool. It's a cool thing to see, but it's like, for me personally, I was like, I could have done without some of that extra fluff. I like James Lang. I like Stephen Lang. Yep. I like to see his dynamic. I think that was very smart to bring him back as an Avatar because that was one of my big worries going into it. And I didn't know he was going to be in the movie because I didn't watch a lot of trailers and stuff for it. So I will say, on the note of trailers, this movie did trailers right. So many trailers now, like you watch the 1 minute, 30-second trailer and you know the arc of the story, you know the plot, everything. You're like, oh, well, this is what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. This trailer was like, there was no words. It was just visuals. And I was like, yep, I want to see that movie. It got me, it teased me. All right, I'm cool. Let's go. And if you're going to keep the water stuff, I think you could have probably cut back the time that they were actually in like the forest of like, okay, this is them recolonizing. We spent a lot of time with the forest in the first one. Now we're leaving. This is why we're leaving. It makes sense. But those would be like, if I'm just looking at like what I would do differently from a creative perspective. Now, what I really enjoyed as far as like the themes is I do like the idea of like, you have this warrior. What does it look like when he's only concerned about safety? Yep. So before we get into some of the themes, I'm curious, you mentioned how they brought Stephen Lang back as the colonel. He's a great villain, by the way. Very punchable face, but also in real life has a very great mustache. Yes. So he's a friend of ours, friend of the show. I'm curious, like story-wise, they bring him back as an Avatar. They find a way to bring Sigourney Weaver back in the cast as Kiri, as an Avatar. How did you feel about the way they brought certain characters back who like died in the first movie? I was cool with it because it's been 14 years since the last one, so it's not like it was just like, oh, this person died, and then like next year we see them and they're back in it. It's like, okay. Did you feel at all like it was like convenient plot armor? Did that cheapen it at all for you? I feel like it was a little bit safe, but the Sigourney one more so. I think Stephen Lang worked really well because he was such like he had the gravitas. He's what made, to me, the first movie, like he's the one that carried a lot of the weight. Like visuals was cool, but like story wise, he was a good villain. Like regardless of like, is it a traditional story we've seen before? He has, like you said, that punchable. He seems like a colonel. Like he's kind of a intimidating dude. So to bring him back, I think was a smart move.
See, I thought my first reaction as I'm watching it is I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't feel like authentic to the story. It feels more like, what's the word? It feels like Christopher Nolan said The Dark Knight ended the way he wanted it to end, and that The Dark Knight Rises was always going to be that story. But we know that if Heath Ledger doesn't die, he's in that movie, bar none, no, full stop. This made me think, like, well, if 13 years didn't have to pass, is this the actual story that he wanted to write?
Or is he having to reintroduce?
Or is it like he's a smart storyteller and he figured out a way to do it 13 years later? I at first had a little bit of a stake of like a qualm with it, but as the movie went on, I think it paid off. So I was cool with it.
Did you find it hard to connect with any of the characters due to the fact that they all look pretty similar and are blue?
No, because I can tell the difference between what blue people look like. They don't all look the same. They have different traits. And like some of them pull their hair back and some of them don't. And that's pretty defining characteristic.
Okay.
No, I think that similarly to the first one, the plot in general is not anything like super new or surprising. Visually, it's a great story. It like spending time with this whale in the water, spending time with the characters underwater or in different parts by themselves. That is time that you need, because we mentioned some of the news earlier about, movies getting pushed back, movies getting pushed forward across a lot of different platforms and sagas. Knowing that this movie is part of a 5-movie series or possibly a trilogy just into the next one, kind of let me forgive them for stretching a lot of characters thin. This is kind of the natural progression. Jake Sully now is a Na'vi. He's one of the people. He is Marak'tong, all these big things. So he's going to have a family. So we have to meet those kids, and we have to give them some time. And so for the first third of the movie is like the parents dealing with the problem. Then there's like the middle third of the movie is the kids kind of doing their own thing, getting themselves into trouble. And then in the climax of the film is a lot of the kids and the parents trying to constantly like save each other.
Yeah, back and forth.
So I thought that was really cool. And without a lot of people that I saw that had problems with the movie were like, it was just a convoluted mess, or I spent too many time with too many characters, I didn't like it. For me, I'm willing to forgive that because I know there's another movie coming. And I think that the time that we spent with them was still good. Being able to watch facial expressions of his son realize like he's alone, realize and feel like he's a screw up. Everyone can relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
My dad was a good dad, but I still felt at times like I was a screw up. Sully doesn't flat out tell him like all the time, like, you're a moron and you're this, you're that. But you can still see the son internalize that. So we as the audience get the chance to internalize it. And that's not something that a lot of movies are willing to do and just give us the silent time to do that. It was funny. I didn't really realize that the son felt like an outcast until the ocean people said that the whale was an outcast. And it was like all of a sudden he realized it, like, oh, yeah, I am an outcast. I feel that way. And I thought that the storytelling method of spending time there was really well done.
So that's why I think I struggled with connecting with the characters a little bit, was the kids, just because him and his brother looked pretty similar, and then you've got all the water people that look kind of similar, all the younger ones. And for me, it was just like, I don't really know which one of you I care about very much, just because it's like I can't really tell you apart from your sibling.
Yep.
But so that James Cameron does such a good job of like the animals, the world, the water. I don't know how he made the water look like it does in that movie with the CGI. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But to me, the weaker part is the actual Avatar animation themselves. When Miley like was half asleep when I'm watching this, and she goes, "Oh, I thought you were just playing a video game." She goes, "Like this is a movie," and so like I do think that like some of like the We've talked a lot about like movies kind of pulling you out when there's so much CGI. I do think that like there is something about just watching it bunch of CGI that makes it like a little harder to like personally like connect for me for some reason. But just funny to say, because coming off of Spider-Man, where I feel like I connected so much with that story on a personal level, which is an animated movie, it was like for some reason this is like there was just some sort of disconnect.
So this is probably a foreshadow of our rankings, but I disagree. I really liked being sucked into this world. Like, there is something at the end of both Avatar and Avatar 2 that when it goes to watching the next thing I watch, whether it's on YouTube or something else, I'm so used to seeing that world of Pandora and all the CGI. It sucks me in that all of a sudden something doesn't look right. Like seeing 4K natural stuff, it looks bizarre.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good, and I like the world building. I'm curious from your end, thematically, both Avatar 1 and this Way of Water speak to a lot of different themes. Like there's environmentalism, the power of Mother Nature. There's clearly the family and tradition, growing up, personal identity, this sense of self. There's some racism and tribalism. There's lots of huge implications about faith, lots of talks about spirituality and religion, while at the same time there's discussions about war and violence, economics. There's redemption. There's the meaning of what it means to be home. Lots of love, good and evil, and kind of the benevolence of life. I think a good movie fosters discussion. And I can't think of a movie in recent memory that fostered so much authentic discussion about a variety of topics the way that Avatar does. It doesn't necessarily argue for one specifically. It just puts it on a platter. Were there any themes that really like stood out or resonated with you most?
So I think like you talked about, I think the like conservationism style theme of like, why are you feel bad when they're going to like kill that well, just so
terrible.
They can get that like one piece of thing and then just like waste the rest of it, just like sink it to the bottom. So it's like you get the idea, you get the lesson that he's going for there, you get that. I don't know if James Cameron. So I think part of him may have been like this Scott Lang character where he feels like he did a disservice to his son in Spider, of like he wasn't there because he was so focused on his mission. So it really made me wonder of like, is this James in the story? Like, does he feel like through his like directorial efforts that he wasn't there for his son, for his kid, while he was growing up, and now this is like the result of what his son has become, that time he spent with him.
I just know that he really does love the water, obviously, with doing things like Titanic, The Abyss.
He does his own submarine
Avatar movies.
And
he was really inspired a lot by like doing free diving, just holding your breath and diving as deep as he possibly could into the water. And you see some of that show up here. But I was really we talked last week about how family is a theme that comes up over and over and over again. But this one really showed it. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, let's talk about family dynamics and how we're having a conflict. Here you get to see a lot of different types of families. You see a pregnant woman like riding off into battle. You see families uproot. You see families cry over the loss of their home. Like, there's a lot put on it. And I kept thinking about like me and my own children. I've got 4 kids. You've got 2 children. Where something that I left leaving this movie is like the responsibilities of parenthood change the way that you respond to crisis. And how Sully responds in the first movie to crisis is very different than the way that he responds to crisis in this movie. And the only difference is that he's now a parent.
Yeah. Well, he's not just responsible for himself. He's responsible for the kids and his wife now. And while he feels in the first movie that sense of responsibility to redeem himself because he's betrayed these people that have accepted him, now he's only worried about, he's trying to keep the whole people safe, but his main priority is his kids. That's why they flee, is he's trying to keep his family as safe as possible because he sees his boys get kind of caught up in a skirmish, and he knows like, oh, this is probably not too far away from one of my kids winding up dead, which is obviously foreshadowed, and then later you see his son die, which is like pretty tough. It's emotional. Even as much as I talked about my disconnect with the blue people, I did feel like very emotional about that whole situation.
They're not blue people. They're blue people of color.
I know. And so you imagine that like like you said, we have kids. Like, what do you do in that situation where it's like, yeah, just leave. Like, if they want the forest, like, I'll just go somewhere else. But at some point, you've got to stand up for your.
I get the sense from watching this movie that, like, there had to have been a lot of stuff from Zoe Saldana's character, Natiti, that was cut. Because a lot of the movie, she's just spent, like, emotionally reacting to the circumstances that her family's in.
She's very, like, angry
and sad, wailing, crying. So I get the sense that a lot of that dialogue was cut just because of timing. But I still found myself feeling for her, thinking about, well, if I was a mother, if I was a parent in this situation, I would feel the same way. I would not want to do this, or I would want to do it this way. And I think that the way that they wrote Jake's character in this movie was really smart, because it reminds me a lot of some of, like, the scenes from Game of Thrones where the character knows what they want to do isn't, like, the best thing to do for all of the people. Because what's best for this person is what's best for the group, even though what their flesh wants to do is to just respond immediately and do this act of vengeance. Let's go do this thing. And I liked seeing him talk about that. I'm like, no, we can't do this because this is what they're trying to do. It showed, like, how strategic he was and how, like, why he is not just a great warrior, but, like, a good leader, a good king. And I really liked the way that they showed kind of the leader of the water people. It would have been so derivative of Jake and him to, like, have butt heads and been like, you know what, you gotta go. You brought these people here, and this is the problem. We said it wasn't gonna happen, and them butt heads, but they didn't. And I kept expecting them to hit and bump heads, and I think it was so smart of the writers to not.
Yeah, I like
because they had
how he respected
joint
them.
Respect.
Yeah,
it was like, look, we both respect these people. Jake is a worldwide celebrity on Pandora. He saved the Na'vi people from the spacewalkers. They know this guy, and he wasn't going to challenge him, even though he knew, like, what was happening. And he's got kids, so they can kind of understand this. And so even the joint respect amongst leaders, I love that they showed that, because you got to think that does exist. And a lot of times movies take the easy way out to have, like, well, let's just have some internal fighting. And that's what that infighting looked like. It was going to be the plot point, and when it wasn't, I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I liked that internal respect. I think that they did an excellent job setting up for a movie that we know is going to have 3 more to follow it with. This was the forest people's problem. We go out to the water people. Don't bring your problem out here. But then that realization that, like, oh, the problem's coming. Even if Jake didn't come here, maybe that sped up the process by a few years. But, like, they were eventually going to come to us because we have resources as well.
So this starts to speak to the world building of Pandora and the story that will be told there. This comes from a little bit of my watching of Ryan from Screen Crush. He talked about how, like, think about the name of the city where they land and torch in the center. They were very strategic. They come back with their ships and they torch a huge area of territory right in the middle of Pandora's rainforest. And they call that city Bridgehead City. So that tells us that is, like, the bridge towards other places. It was a strategic stronghold to choose to land there, to clear out land in the middle of this traditionalized city of the forest Na'vi people. And so we know that from the story in the first Avatar, they're mining raw materials to sell it back to people on Earth.
Unobtainium.
Here, they're saying that Earth is uninhabitable. They've destroyed it, and they're coming there. So it's no longer an economics mission. Now it's a humanitarian survival mission. So we know the Skywalkers have no reason to give up. This is sink or swim, go bust. So they're not going to give up easily. So at the end of this movie, when Jake says, we can't run from this, I think what we're setting ourselves up for in the future movies is Jake Sully, the guy who saved the people, now being able to take that, like, global icon ability to go to other parts of the world, whether that's, like, volcano people or desert people or snow people. Like, go to those other parts of the world that we haven't seen and say, I need you to fight for us, and have some infighting where, like, this is, like, a very traditional society. There's no email. There's no internet. They probably know of Jake Sully and who he is, but that doesn't mean they're going to fight for the water people or the forest people. They're not going to join, and it's going to be really interesting to see the stakes get higher and higher. I really liked how in this story it didn't build up to some epic face-off that was, like, planned like the first one. It just kind of happens organically, and all of a sudden these specific players are in the same place at the right time, so let's go. So in these other movies, I think in the future we're going to see stakes continue to rise, and I'm excited about that, to explore other worlds. And I think James Cameron can do that visually. I'm really excited to see desert people or volcano people or whatever different Pandora biome they want to explore.
Well, it speaks very much to like local and regional things, and we get this a lot in Texas. It's like you have somebody from North Texas is a lot different than somebody from West Texas, and somebody from East Texas is a lot different than somebody from Central Texas. And so even just that, like having those differences of those people are from the forest, but like now we've got these thicker tails, you got these bigger arms because we've been swimming this whole time. If you meet somebody from Galveston, they're a lot different than somebody that grew up in West Texas. So I think that the juxtaposition of characters will be interesting. Ubisoft had a reveal yesterday of their Avatar game, which is going to be set in the world. It's a first-person shooter, and you are a Na'vi player, and I'm very much interested in it. It looks super, super fun, and that just speaks to the world that's been built here. And even though I have some issues with the movie, I'm very interested to see like 3 and 4 and 5 and where they go. I'm interested to play the game. I'm interested to hop back into this universe because I do think that he created something that's really is an interesting ecosystem and environment, and an idea that resonates with so many like family themes and so many ecological themes. And regardless of where you sit on like the boat of like global warming or any of those things, you do realize like we got to take good care of the environment. And this is a people who's heavily connected to their whole ecosystem. And the reason that the people are coming from Earth, which I'm sure is a very much James Cameron intended message, is that they've used all the resources.
This is a sequel to WALL-E.
Yeah.
Buy and Save by and large, has ruined the Earth. And I think they do a really good job in both movies, even for people that may not be as environmentally friendly or conscientious, of thinking about how are we going to make them care about Home Tree? How are we going to make them care about these whales? And when these events happen in the movie, you feel the terror of like the event actually happening, but then you also have to think about how the Na'vi people are going to handle this, and you think about that emotion. It hurts. Yeah. So there is this really cool drama there, and I think that the first Avatar really does a good job of teaching us to see things through new eyes. Literally Jake's eyes that open the movie and in the movie. Seeing things through new eyes. This second movie, I think, asks us to like empathize and look at the world through other people's eyes. So many characters are forced with like, look, you got to think about what this person does there. You got to look at that. And we get to see other people's perspectives on forest people and water people. And literally even Stephen Lang's character, he has to see things through new eyes. He sees his death on a tablet. He sees his son. That's not his son. Like, there are so many different people seeing things in different ways. And like one of the big parts of the climax between Lang, Sully, and Spider, you have a human that is a Na'vi, you have a human that is in an avatar, and then you have a human that wants to be a Na'vi, all at the center of this conflict, and they all have to like learn to let go of their pride and walk away. And I think there's clearly a thought about how we empathize with one another and how we love one another. And when I think about movies that are worth discussing, I can't help but talk about movies that teach those types of things. And this to me isn't like a family movie as it's billed, but like when my kids are old enough, I'll be very happy to watch this movie with my family because I think there's so much to take away from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like good personal lessons and then good like community. How do we treat each other? How we handle our responsibilities?
Surprisingly, this is like a very moral movie.
Yeah.
Like it challenges your morals. It forces you to ask questions like, why would they do that? Or why would you do this? What would you do if you were these people? And I think it presents it in a really neat package that it's worth discussing. I'm curious on this from you. You and I talk a lot about our faith. There's a lot of faith elements in this movie. Awa, if you were just to say that backwards, that's Yahweh. That's where the name comes from, is James Cameron's play on the Hebrew God Yahweh. There's a lot of, like, the avatar is literally pulled, the blue is literally pulled from Hinduism and the way that Hindu gods are often portrayed by their blue avatars in traditional art. This movie is a 3-hour and 16-minute movie. Most notably 3:16 and John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, for all who believe him would have eternal life.
And Austin 3:16 says.
Austin 3:16. What faith elements did you take away from this movie?
So I actually really liked that they allowed for, like, they showed that their medicine had very little. They showed that the human medicine had very little control, because whenever they talk about Sigourney Weaver's character, she has the epileptic episode, and they talk about, well, that's very traditional. She'll feel, these euphoric moments. It's textbook epilepsy. But then you see that, like, come to fruition, that, like, control that she had over her environment. It's so easy for us to, I think, push aside anything that we hear about that has any sort of, like, supernatural or spiritual element to it. But there is something to, like, being connected to the world around us and the creation around us. And really the way that the Na'vi people are in their world is really what, as Christians, we're kind of called to, what the first man was called to oversee this domain, to reign and rule. But that involved a lot of, like, respect for the environment, respect for the animals. Obviously, you kill what you have to eat, and you use everything else. That responsibility, that job, that's what we're kind of here for, is to be in charge of that ecosystem. And I think that the Na'vi people perfectly represent that, whereas then the humans perfectly represent of kind of how we handle it now, of, like, we're going to take what we need. But
by force,
whatever it takes, we're going to take it, and we're going to take what's valuable to us. But, like, if we don't really have a use for the other parts, we're just going to discard it and kind of throw it away. And it's what we do a lot of times in a lot of situations, and it's unfortunate. We even have it today where it's like poaching, where they take the horns off of the tusks off of an elephant, and then, like, they just kill the animal. Whereas, like, if a village kills the elephant, they, like, use everything.
Yep.
And so, what about you?
For me, so I really enjoyed the philosophical thoughts of this movie. And before I get too deep into that, I would ask you this question. There is a kind of lingering question post this movie of, like, who is Kiri's father? How was she conceived? What is that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
The Sigourney Weaver's?
Yeah, Sigourney.
I thought they said she was like a surrogate thing. I thought they just, like,
so
birthed her or something.
So they mentioned that her mother's avatar, Sigourney Weaver's character's avatar, gave birth to this baby. And so there's a couple ways that could happen. Obviously, she could have been having sex as her avatar body, and she got pregnant before. And because she was then tied to Awa, her body was still having life force enough to produce the baby. So her soul wasn't transferred, but, like, her body was able to deliver the child per Awa's power. I mean, maybe some weird avatar Na'vi necrophilia, where, like, somebody was banging her in her little cryo tube. Yeah, who knows?
Scientist guy.
However, I want to offer what I think is most likely to be true, which, again, I go back to the runtime of this being 3:16. I think my thought is that Kiri is born, her father is midichlorians from Star Wars.
Yep.
No, I think it's
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I think there's some, like, immaculate conception type here that goes back to that moment in Avatar where she is tied to Awa, transferring her body, and she says she can see Awa, and Kiri is almost this, like, manifestation of Awa. That's why she has this control, this intense connection with Awa.
So she's like the Christ figure
exactly
in the show. Okay.
So I think that there is definitely some stuff there, and you're seeing her as, like, a adolescent. In the Bible, you don't really see a lot of Jesus Christ as an adolescent, but you know that he was able to do miraculous things. And I think that's part of what this story is a little bit about, of setting up those things. You see her, like, faith in Awa kind of set her apart as like an outcast at first. But you can also see that something's different about this kid. Something miraculous is going to happen. And when it miraculously does happen, it's still really impressive to see.
Yeah.
And it unites her family. It saves people. So I think that she's going to play a really interesting role in like the third movies. I don't know beyond that just because of Sigourney Weaver being 73 years old playing a 14-year-old. So we'll see what that does. But I think as you think about where this movie goes, I think that the third movie sets up to be an opportunity to be a really sad movie for Curie because it could be like a crucifixion type movie where we have to see death before life can rise again. And that's just a plot point in the life of Jesus Christ. And if Curie is meant to be kind of that kind of Neo, the one that's going to break the matrix, there has to be some sort of penance for that crime and for that sin. So I'm really interested to see that. And then another area that I think is really cool is how Stephen Lang's character grows throughout this movie. He starts out as just the Avatar version of himself from the first movie, but he starts living the Avatar way. He starts doing Avatar things, and at the very end, he sacrifices his chance to kill Jake Sully to save Spider, this kid that's not even his. So I think in the future movies, you're going to see him continue to like change.
Do you think he's gonna be Paul?
I don't know. Maybe he could be like someone like a Paul or like a Doubting Thomas type epistle. I'm not saying that he's gonna become like a main character, but like maybe you could see like a Darth Vader type last minute switch from him, where like they're gonna nuke Pandora because they can't beat the Na'vi people, and he stops them because now he has empathy. The same way that he learned to empathize and learn the Na'vi way, he has a chord. He can link into Awa. Maybe somewhere along the way he like links in. He's like, oh no, this is real.
And he's blind.
So now he's able to say
days.
like, look, this is real. And maybe he has his own personal confliction with what to do, because before he was looking at Jake thinking like, how could you do this? And when he's drinking his coffee and bombing people in the first movie, he would never do that to people. He's only able to do that because they're blue people. Yeah. And then in this movie, he has a little bit of empathy for Spider. So maybe there's a chance in this next movie that he can grow and he can change, because I don't want to see him just come back and be another version of himself, bigger and badder. I'd like to see him be kind of like a side villain and us have to deal with other things. Maybe that's infighting. Maybe that's more people. But I definitely think that there is something to talk about Awa and Kiri and that connection between like mother and daughter, like Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Like, what is there to do there? And again, I don't know if James Cameron is Christian. I know there's a lot of Christian themes in this movie. Even if you're not Christian, there's so many good like family and moral values that I think you can take from it that just made it a really fun movie to watch.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
So before I get into my ranking, my closing thoughts, some like weird thorns. I thought it was towards the end, while the like scene with the ship at the end is really awesome, I just couldn't help but think of like, oh, I've seen Titanic from James Cameron. Oh, I've seen The Abyss from James Cameron. Oh, I've seen Alien from James Cameron. I've seen Predator. Like, it just felt a lot of that. It was really great. Don't get me wrong.
It was
and
fun.
I will say this, man, when they were fighting in the water, when Neytiri was fighting those people on the on the boat, that I got hyped. I was hyped in my. I had the sound blazing up, and I was like, "Get him! Oh yeah, you better." That was like
anytime that
so sick.
Neytiri killed anybody, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like when she's like,
"Oh man!"
Arrows,
when the whale jumped on the ship, and I was like, "It's about to go down."
When they cut that guy's arm off with the cable.
Oh, dude, it was nuts.
Like, oh my!
It was
God.
like it was so good because of the way that happened. Like they took out all the whale people, the whale hunters. The only like kind of consistency thing I thought was really weird there is what happened to all the water people? Because they're all there to fight. And obviously, some people die, but then like after their son dies, some of them go back. Like their daughters and their sons are still there
on the boat. Yeah, I don't know.
But they all just like I guess took off back home. They just left Jake and Neytiri there. Neytiri is like Jake Bourne level badass.
Oh yeah.
With the bow and arrow, she is flying around. Bing, bing, bing. I was hyped when she was just like, oh yeah, baby.
Yep.
So I loved that. It was really fun. That part alone, I was like, I really should have seen this in theaters. I really would have liked this in theaters.
So my only problem with the last battle scene was the younger daughter still being there. I'm like, why would you bring her on that mission?
Oh man,
why
Tuk
did you
Tuk,
bring?
She was brought along just to be an empathy bomb.
I'm like, why do you keep getting captured? Like, stop getting captured, little girl. Like, you're just messing this up for everybody.
Oh, I did laugh though when she, like, the third time she gets captured. She goes, oh man, how did I get tied up again?
I know. I was like, at least she had some self-awareness there at that point. But yeah, the battles. Oh man, there were so many good fight scenes.
And then at the end, I kind of had. I didn't cry, but I did definitely feel that like lump in my throat where they're mourning the loss of this son, and his younger son kind of saves them all by teaching his father the way of water. The
breathing.
The son and the daughter save the mom and the father, and they're all standing there on the rock together. And he looks at him and he says, "I see you. I see you." And I felt that when I got done watching the movie, I went and told my wife, "Hey, I see you," because I feel very akin to that, watching a mother and a father who have 2 boys and 2 girls. That is literally me. I've got 2 boys. I've got 2 girls, and I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a situation like that. My kids are all very young. They're younger than Tuk Tuk in this movie. So, like, the fear and anxiety, like the rage that Zoe Saldana plays is just so good that I was like, wow. And we end the movie again looking in Jake's eyes. We see the memories inside Awa of their son, and you see him in an instant go from young to old. And it reminds me and you just of how, like, in the short years that we've been parents, how quick it goes by, and to not have that is just like really painful to think of. And I think they really did a great job of capturing a family unit. Even if they didn't get all the backstory of every character, I'm willing to give a little bit of grace to that because we're obviously setting up for more. If this movie is going to be, if the final movie in this series is going to last till 2031, the sad reality is that a lot of these characters are going to be dead before that movie. Yeah. Just because of the fact that Sigourney Weaver may not be alive. James Cameron may not live through this series. Sam Worthington, the actor who plays Jake Sully, Zoe Saldana, they're 44 and 50. So, like, they're not going to be able to be the lead dog. So it stands to reason that in these next movies, we're going to see the son, Spider, Kiri, those characters become much more the prominent leads who take on more of the action stuff. So I'm excited. What did you rank this movie?
I ranked this movie 7.5 minivans out of 10.
Okay, that's a little higher based off what your comment.
No, most of my stuff is like nitpicky stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like I did have some issues with it, but I still enjoyed the movie overall. So, what did you give it?
So, fun fact: I found out on the Disney Plus a little like docuseries afterwards that the actor who plays Spider, Jack Champion, he's in Endgame. So, a little fun fact: he's riding a bike, and he was with Paul Rudd when he was going to. On that movie, he told him he was going to go try out and audition for this film. And, like, the next time he saw him was at the premiere for Endgame. And he was like, hey, I got the part. It's like, oh, my gosh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
So cool little Paul Rudd is amazing
little
story.
MCU. Yeah.
And because there were so many kids in this movie, they had a swear jar on set.
Oh, that's funny.
And they said the biggest contributors to the swear jar were Sam Worthington and James Cameron. And James Cameron said he could have funded the movie if he would have paid for every cuss word he actually used.
That's hilarious.
So I like that there's a sense of like, hey, let's keep the innocence.
Yeah, the community.
It feels like a family movie at times, and I like that even the set was like that. So for me, I think this is a movie about learning how to breathe, and there are parts that really take your breath away. I really enjoyed it. I liked it more than the first one. I think visually it's breathtaking. As a father, I connect with the story. For me, I give this a 9 minivans.
Ooh, nice.
I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really embarrassed by my inner hipster that said I'm not going to see this in theaters because I'm not a huge James Cameron fan.
I watched the first one like 8 times.
But I will not make that mistake again.
No, I'm seeing
the next one I will see in theaters, regardless of if it's a good movie or a bad movie. I believe in the hype, and some people just know how to do things big. And say what you want. This might have felt like derivative of the Titanic, but it was more. It delivered, and I'm excited to see kind of where this story goes.
Jumps to
in a world where a lot of like everything has to have a spin-off series or its own new side story or side quest. I'm interested in this because this is literally a whole different world. And there's in 2 movies, which have almost 6 plus hours of content. This story could have been several seasons of material, but I don't get the cinematic quality of it like I would with James Cameron. So I'll sacrifice some of the story if it means I get just this true spectacle of a film. And I think I've learned James Cameron's going to deliver spectacles. There's a reason this movie was so high grossing. I did not want to like it. And as I was watching it, I was so involved and invested that for me, there's no way I could walk away without giving this a 9. And I know that is even high by like Rotten Tomatoes scores. A lot of those are like 7 to 8 out of 10. I just thought that this was an exquisite movie that has so many opportunities to discuss really important themes of life. And for that, I gave it a 9.
Yeah, you've started to grow out your ponytail. I see it in the back a little bit.
It's coming.
Gonna get you start tying it to different animals.
I'm gonna see if I can link up my mustache or something. I got that. I can get that cord out and just kind of bond with stuff.
There you go.
That'd be sick. What animal would you most like to bond with from Pandora?
One of those dragons. I mean,
a banshee.
You could fly around on that thing. That'd be awesome.
I kind of was digging the whale. That was
I thought
baller.
that son was gonna connect with it like on a full like I thought that was gonna be his like mount or whatever.
You gonna have sex with a whale?
No, well, I mean, it's kind of like what they do. You insert your hair into their.
You let him bond for life with a whale?
Yeah, but I thought that's where he was gonna go. I was like, oh, that would be a dope mount. Like your dad got a dragon, you got a freaking whale.
Riding a freaking whale.
But
no, it was a good movie. I was really happy with it, and I think if you haven't seen Avatar, if you haven't seen Avatar 2: Way of Water, go see them. They're on Disney Plus. There are so many awesome movies out there, and these are 2 movies you can watch that are going to be really fun to watch. Turn up the sound, get in a dark room. They're good ones.
And Avatar 2 is also on Max. I don't know if the first one is on Max,
but check them out. They're awesome movies, and that's going to wrap up this specific episode on Avatar 2. Let us know in the comment section what you thought about the movie. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think James Cameron is a cinematic critic who's a piece of shit? Or did you think that, hey, man, this guy's got Oscar chops.
This guy knows how to make a movie. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't have to agree with what he says, but the guy knows how to make a good movie. Like that's the simple truth of it. He knows how to make a movie that is riveting and is visually a spectacle. He knows how to make a summer blockbuster probably better than anybody else. So
I mean, he's the guy. I mean, the dude has made some really wise choices with the movies he's made, and maybe some of them seem a little bit derivative, but they're good. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about The Flash. So if you get a chance, go check it out and let us know what you think about that. Coming up, we've got a really fun show. After that, the following week, we're going to do a red light, green light, where we're going to just talk about some of the movies that we haven't had a chance to get to. There's so many good movies that we'd love to spend some time talking about. That's going to be our grab bag. And then we're going to follow that up with a July 4th special, talking about the great American movies. We're going to do a draft where the 2 of us will talk about the best all-American movies of all time. But with that in mind, I think we're going to check out of Kansas and hop into our avatars and
run around
go
Pandora.
eat a gorgle nut or something. That sounds like something.
That's just something you're going to eat. I'm not eating no nuts. So
all right, so I guess we'll see you down the road.
Peace.